Well, there is no denying that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is one of the, if not the most anticipated new Nintendo Switch release since this console launched 6 years ago, as it's the follow-up to Zelda Breath of the Wild that put the Nintendo Switch on the map with the type of initial success that we saw the console propel to shortly after launch, and there's no doubt that Breath of the Wild played a big part in that. So logically, you would expect a lot of eyeballs to be on the sequel to this game known as Tears of the Kingdom and how Nintendo will navigate following up the most successful Zelda game ever in franchise history when it comes to a sales perspective. And one interesting thing that has happened more and more as of recently online is a division of two different camps of fans that were looking forward to this game. Some feel like it is $70 DLC in light of the more recent deep gameplay reveal from Mr. Aonuma himself, and really these conversations even stemmed back to the original announcement that this would be taking place in the same Hyrule that we know and love from Breath of the Wild. And not to mention, this is officially the longest gap in mainline Zelda games when it comes to development time in between major releases. And then on the other side of the fence, you have people more like me that feel like, yes, it's a sequel to Breath of the Wild, the most successful Zelda game ever, and it's going to be more of what we know and love, but with some more unique, deep dive gameplay mechanics that will alter the world and how we interact with it. And we've only really seen the beginning of Hyrule so far, so let's not get ahead of ourselves and assume that everything is exactly the same and that we're buying $70 DLC. But in today's video, we need to go over how Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is currently proving its haters wrong, because while there may be a very vocal crowd out there saying that this game is not worth the price point, there are some interesting numbers we need to look at that definitely tell a different story, and we need to get on the same page with all of that information and what Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will mean for the broader picture of the Zelda franchise going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. And as mentioned, guys, today we are discussing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and the split reaction that is going on currently online around this game, because as mentioned, there are definitely two more and more vocal camps kind of warring back and forth with each other online, as you'd expect just about anything to turn into on the internet nowadays. But you do have definitely some very strong opinions on both sides of how this game is evolving the Zelda Breath of the Wild formula in terms of it being the follow-up to the first ever open world Zelda game. We saw such a difference in direction from what a traditional 3D Zelda experience was up to that point in time, and it did so much right for the future formula of the franchise. Open world and Zelda just work together very well. I have said before that I have not been the biggest fan of shrine/divine beasts over traditional dungeons. However, I still find myself thoroughly enjoying every playthrough of Breath of the Wild, as I'm finishing up one right now in anticipation for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and the depth and scope of the game is truly a masterful level of an achievement from Nintendo, and I personally don't believe we have any reason to worry that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will not do the same thing for the franchise and just improve on what that original Hyrule was. But that is one big point of contention with gamers online, is that yes, this is indeed the same Hyrule, and if you look at the recent 10-minute gameplay trailer from Mr. Aonuma, that was clear as day, because once you were not in a Sky Island, which was kind of the newer spot that is likely the starting of the game, or some of the tutorial section, if you will, kind of akin to the Great Plateau before you start off on your adventure, it was very clear that once Link hit the ground that we were right back in the same Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, and that definitely rubbed many fans the wrong way, including the fact that the graphics, while there is some lighting improvements and the game likely runs smoother and more consistently without dropping frames on Tears of the Kingdom, there is definitely some dialogue around the fact that this looks like the same game, and that's where that whole $70 DLC conversation comes in from the fans who are criticizing this game heavily online. One piece of information that does not line up with this game not doing well because of Nintendo being lazy with it, quote unquote, or reselling us the same game twice, but just having some different gameplay mechanics, is actually tied to recent Amazon charts. As you can see currently today under best sellers in video games, that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is #1 in terms of the game performance. The only thing that is above it is the PlayStation and Xbox digital cards, which historically will always sit at 1 and 2. But there you have Tears of the Kingdom at #3 in the entire video game bestsellers page. And just beneath that at #7, you have the Nintendo Switch OLED model, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Edition, which is saying something because while Nintendo has definitely produced a lot of those, more than I initially thought that they would, it is still something that is sitting that high on the charts at a $359 retail price. So while there is a lot of talk and criticism online around how this game looks and plays in comparison to the original, the fan demand around it is completely the opposite. Now, I am definitely fully aware that it's a more controversial decision to sell this as a $70 price point in the same current generation that most of the Nintendo Switch games, or all of them up to this point in time, first party published, have cost $60. However, I do think that we were going to see that price point sooner or later from Nintendo. We're definitely at the tail end of the Nintendo Switch life cycle today, and I think Nintendo just felt like if there was ever a game that they could justify that price point to get us Nintendo fans warmed up to the idea that certain Switch games will be $70, or especially, in my opinion, just about every Nintendo Switch 2 or successor to the Switch games will be $70, it is Tears of the Kingdom. That's how they get us warmed up to that idea. And what I don't think people are taking into account when they're being critical and calling this $70 DLC is the fact that we have only seen the very beginning of the game. And if graphics are an end-all be-all to you, you probably will be let down, because this is definitely not a big graphical leap forward. But I think in terms of the gameplay mechanics that we saw, considering you can fuse weapons, and we just saw that at the most basic level with the initial items that were around in the tutorial area, and that you can fuse different environmental objects and essentially craft whatever kind of vehicle you need to traverse throughout the world, as well as ascend through caves within mountains and ascend to the top of them. There's likely underwater exploration, as well as that ascend button briefly pops up when Link dives into the water. There is a lot of evidence to support the fact that traditional dungeons are coming back in this game, and I don't think it's going to be something where we feel like we are just exploring the same Hyrule. Not to mention, if you were questioning that it's the same amount of content, the game is just about double the size of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's no way they didn't add in a ton more. We've seen the direct statements that yes, a lot of the adventure does also take place in the skies above. There are likely vast underground areas and potentially portions of Hyrule that we were never able to get to before. So while yes, this game will be taking place in the same world, I think the critical response once the game is actually out and in gamers' hands will be vastly different than the criticism you were seeing online today. I would also like to compare and contrast this to a major Sony release that was out recently that had a lot of the same controversy, which was God of War Ragnarok. That game technically takes place in the same world as the first God of War 2018, and fans were highly critical of it when seeing gameplay trailers and saying the exact same thing, that this just looks like full price DLC. We're getting the same game twice. And what you don't realize is that when a direct sequel to a game is taking place, it's going to feel like the first game. It's going to feel like the one it is based around, and it may even incorporate many of the same environments that the first one did. But when you refine the combat mechanics, when you refine the gameplay, when you alter how you can interact with the entire world, and when you tell a beautiful story that is immersive and compelling throughout, you start to realize how much of a masterpiece of a game it really is. And I thoroughly believe that that same type of crowd shift that we saw with God of War Ragnarok after its release will happen with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, where a lot of the haters and naysayers online will start to just slowly retract back into the woodworks and not really criticize the game if they actually give it a chance and play it, because it will likely be incredible. Now, my stance on this also comes from a lot of the fact that I have high faith in the Zelda team, as growing up playing every single major release over all of the years, and I have no doubt that all of this development time time has gone towards things that will enhance our end gameplay experience at the end of the day. But I do understand that if you don't have that same kind of confidence in the Zelda team and you haven't played every major new Zelda release as it's come out, you might be a little bit more on shaky grounds with what you've seen so far. But I don't think you have to wait too much longer. What will be interesting to see from here is how Nintendo drives home the marketing campaign for the rest of this game. I personally am not expecting a Zelda focused direct presentation to take place, and I actually think that less is more with the marketing around Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I do think we will get updated overview trailers and gameplay trailers with a deeper dive, likely a story trailer and then a launch trailer, and maybe even another 10-minute gameplay segment. But I think that if there was a planned Nintendo Direct, we would not have gotten that most recent 10-minute gameplay overview, and something like that would have been saved for the direct presentation. I could be wrong, we're talking about Nintendo here, but I definitely think that those who are concerned about the quality of this game or the scope of the adventure, or if it will feel like a new adventure or not, should definitely pay attention to reviews when the game comes out. Clearly, vote with your wallet at the end of the day. If you don't think $70 is justified for this title, then don't pick it up. Skip it all together and watch how much fun everybody else has online with it. But if you do feel like it's worth checking out, I don't think we will see many complaints from people who pick it up at the $70 retail price point and take to the internet to say that it's no good and that Breath of the Wild just has a bigger DLC expansion. I think all of those conversations will ultimately be put to bed, and the sales momentum and trajectory that we are seeing for this title is definitely good news around future installments for the franchise, because when Nintendo makes more money off of a successful Zelda release, they can grow the development budget, they can put bigger plans towards what is next for the franchise, and I think that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom could potentially be the fastest selling Switch game of all time. That will be a tall order considering that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was a dual release and currently holds that crown today, but I definitely think that it is in the realm of possibility, or at least could be a close second to that, and considering that it is a single standalone release, that will be very impressive to see. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, how you personally feel about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and the back and forth that you see online with certain fans thinking that this is $70 DLC and not worth the price point, and other fans believing that yes, this will indeed be yet another historical adventure once it is ultimately in the hands of gamers. Which side of the fence do you fall on with that conversation? And are you planning on getting this game day one and maybe even already have it pre-ordered? Or are you somebody who needs to see the critic reviews and the gameplay reviews once this thing is actually live and in the hands of gamers? And lastly, from what you've seen so far in terms of trailers and gameplay footage, what are you most hyped to experience firsthand from this game when you end up getting it yourself? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.